Hello, another bit of a special video for today. This is not the Wargaming BZ-176, it is something very interesting. It is the Lesta version, which is a very different vehicle because it is tier 8, it has 680 alpha damage, and it has the rocket boosters which allow it to go at 65 kilometers per hour. So it's a very interesting vehicle, very different to the version we are used to on Wargaming. And I'm going to go through this vehicle in this video. So, there is a review on my website. I haven't uploaded it yet, and I'm not sure when I will do that. For the moment, it's just to show in this video. Just because I haven't got the time to finish it quite yet, but I've done the basic sections for the stats and everything, so I'm showing it here. You can keep up with the website, it will show on the homepage once it is published, or on Discord. But for now, this website, this web page isn't published yet, so you can only see what I'm showing on this video. But the BZ-176, it is a tier 8 tank, and it does have the rocket boost mechanic, as you can see here. And here is its armor profile. So against AP, which this is 225mm of AP, you can see that its armor is pretty average for a heavy tank. On the upper plate, it is very thick, very good, just like the Wargaming version BZ-176, at between 315 to 330mm thick. And it is an auto ricochet, meaning no AP or APCR shell will penetrate it unless they are looking down on the upper plate. So other than this though, you can see there are a few weak points right next to the gun. This is the sort of gun mount area, which is only between, I believe, 215 to 285mm thick. So you can penetrate there. You can see another issue with this tank's armor is its turret roof, which either side of the gun is overmatchable to anything that has a gun which is larger than 90mm. So, for example, if your tank has a 100mm gun, a 105, 122 and such, you will be able to penetrate this always. If you have a 90mm gun, then you can't penetrate this armor, and it will ricochet off because it's an auto bounce area. Other than this though, you can see that the turret cheeks are actually pretty good, between 265 and 280 thick, which means these do stand up to all standard ammo that you face in tier 8. You can see the lower plate is fairly weak, 145 to 155 thick, which means it is HESH penetrable for those tanks such as Caliban or the G-Saw. Switching to premium ammo, here it is 265 APCR. You can see that the turret cheeks are penetrable to this level of penetration, and also note I'm not using enhanced armor on this tank, so if I did use enhanced armor, the turret cheeks would be slightly red rather than currently where it is fully penetrable, fully grey, and that is just because improved assembly gives the tank less armor than enhanced armor does. But you can see turret cheeks penetrable, and of course the upper plate doesn't change just because it is an auto ricochet, and this is APCR, but also because of how thick it is. But you can see armor protection is pretty decent, considering the turret is able to stand up all standard ammo and a few premium rounds from lower penetration premium ammo, such as from 260 heat or APCR and such. However, do note the turret roof weakness. The side armor is 50mm, which is bad. It means this tank cannot side scrape at all, and if it turns the hull even slightly, enemies will go right through those tracks, just because the tracks are well, they cause the 3 caliber bypass rule, or double normalization, double overmatch, which gives the tank extra normalization and thus causes it to go right through despite it being an auto ricochet angle. So you can't turn the hull to angle or anything with this tank. You have to just keep it straight on and hope enemies bounce. So I can just very quickly show you between Wargaming and Lesta. So this is the Lesta version, this is the Wargaming version. Something that's a bit interesting about these two vehicles is the armor thicknesses. So the Lesta version, you can see the upper plate base is 100, the turret front base is 200. The Wargaming version, the upper plate base is 100, well on Lesta it's 97, which is 3mm less than the Wargaming version, and on the turret the Wargaming version is 192, with the Lesta version being 200. So you'll see the Lesta version basically has better armor, one tier lower, which is good. However, its side armor is worse, meaning it can't angle, and of course, don't forget that turret roof weak point. A few other things to note about this armor profile. The rear is 50, so some tanks can penetrate it with HE, but it's not super easy for all vehicles, such as, again, 90mm won't be able to go through that. The turret rear is also 60, but the sides with no spaced armor at all do make it very easy for Hesh to go through. And of course just any ammo which shoots at the tracks. But yeah, that is it for the BZ armor. You'll find that it's fairly reliable when the lower plate is hidden. However, of course the lower plate is massive, so sometimes that is not always easy to do and you can't angle or side scrape. This tank has a 160mm gun. Unlike the Wargaming one, it is not an autoloader. It does 680 damage on AP, 500 on premium AP, and 780 on HE. Something I may not have emphasized enough is that this is not a tier 9 tank. This is tier 8, a tier 8 heavy, and it's got the highest damage in tier 8. So, yeah. Standard ammo has great damage, premium ammo is horrible damage though, and HE is a very little damage increase. So the reason premium ammo is horrible is because if you look at tanks that have 640 alpha on, well, any vehicle, you'll see that their premium ammo is either 550 or 545. So this tank having 680 should really be doing around 570, 580 damage, but it's doing 500. So premium damage is really punishing. You have to try shoot standard as much as you can. 18.5 second reload, which is very long. However, with high alpha damage, you do actually have pretty good DPM, 2200. That is still almost 200 more than the tanks with 400 alpha damage in tier 8. Penetration on AP is low at 210, however it's not super low. It's only 8mm below a few other tanks such as the T-32, 5mm less than tanks such as the VK-45-02A. Premium ammo is 252, which is actually quite good because, again, remember, this is AP, this is not APCR, and AP has the very nice benefit of extra normalization compared to APCR and especially heat shells. And HE, 90mm of penetration. Very good HE penetration. You can do a lot of nasty things to a lot of vehicles' side armor, and even the front armor of some tanks, such as the SU-152. However, with only 780 damage, sometimes it's just not worth it. Aim time is 6 seconds with vertical stabilizer, or 6.4 seconds if using refined gun. So very, very bad aim time, very slow aim time. And you do definitely notice that in battle. Base aim time is 2.9 seconds. Something you'll notice about that is that it is worse than the Caliban, which has 2.55 seconds base aim time. So 2.9 is very noticeably quite bad. The best it gets down to is 2.36 using gun lane drive. Dispersion 0.435 or 0.391 depending on your equipment. This isn't the worst. It could be worse than it is, but luckily it's not. So if you know about the Caliban, that has 0.471 dispersion, so this is actually a significant amount less, which is actually a pretty nice compensation for the base aim time difference. Gun handling though is the same as the Caliban, which is the worst in-game for Lesta, 0.38, 0.38 and 0.19. Gun depression 6 degrees, and shell velocity is 500 on all shells, which, if you note, that shell velocity is the same as a Caliban when it is using AP. So yeah, as said here, it's a derp gun in the truest sense, because this tank just feels very derpy. It aims very slowly, it's got very bad dispersion. Despite it being better than the Caliban, this is still very bad, and it's got horrible gun handling. The saving grace of this gun is the fact that it has really high alpha damage, and its DPM is not bad. 2200 is actually really impressive DPM considering you do 680 alpha, and it doesn't feel like it's reloading for too long in battle, which is an odd thing because 18.5 seconds is by no means fast. On top of this, it is very nice that this tank has AP instead of heat or APCR shells, just because AP can overmatch very easily. It's very good for going through spaced armor and buildings and such, and of course premium AP with increased penetration is something very nice. But yeah, other than this, shell velocity is quite poor, but it's not the worst, and you'll know that if you've played Caliban with the HESH shells and not using supercharger. Next, moving to mobility, top speed of 35, that's pretty good. For a heavy tank, it's fairly average. Reverse speed is a horrible 10 kilometers per hour. Traverse speed is 29 on hard terrain, which is pretty poor. Most heavy tanks generally have 31 to 34 degrees per second. This one having 29 is quite bad. On top of this, it has 1 to 1.3 terrain resistance, causing it to go down to 22 on medium terrain. And you'll know about the Wargaming BZ, which has the same 22 degrees per second medium terrain traverse, which is very slow. One of the worst in tier 8. Next, acceleration of 13 horsepower per ton is pretty decent. It's not the worst, however it's not great either. But with only a 35 km top speed, you don't need too much more. It weighs 57 tons, which is important because this tank has rockets, and it is noticeably 23 tons less, no, 13 tons less than the Wargaming version, which weighs 70. And that does make a difference because if the Wargaming version had rockets, it would be sort of crazy. But acceleration on hard terrain, 13 horsepower per ton. Again, as said, that's enough, but it's not great. 10 on medium, also pretty decent, but nothing impressive. So overall, this tank is sluggish, and the reason being, traverse speed is slow on both hard and medium terrain, which kind of sucks because your actual acceleration isn't the worst and your top speed is actually pretty decent. On top of this, 10 kilometers reverse is just horrible. It means that you are very slow in reverse, it's hard to get around corners, and of course it just makes general maneuvering quite awkward. So, very quickly, it has no special consumables or provisions, but I would say don't use this because this tank, with its poor side armor, getting tracked is quite bad. And also, if you get tracked and you want to use your rockets, it's just very bad to not have this extra repair kit and have the speed boost instead. What's the point of using speed boost if you've got rockets, and then if you get tracked with the speed boost and you can't repair and you can't use your rockets? So I would say go with an extra repair kit just because it's convenient. Next, of course, double food, just because this tank has horrible accuracy and slow aim time, and of course fuel, just because this tank is quite sluggish. With only 25 rounds of ammo, I've gone with 10 AP, 10 premium AP, and 7 HE, because HE is still quite nice due to its high penetration, even though it doesn't increase damage all that much. So, gun rammer or calibrated shells. Gun rammer improves your reload time by a whole 1.4 seconds, so I am using that instead, just because I don't feel there is a need for calibrated shells at all. Again, calibrated shells on Lesta only does 5% to AP, as it should, and And also, you just don't need the penetration because you have premium AP and your standard AP penetration is already very good. Having this reload is actually very nice for being able to deal with enemies and sort of surprise them with the high alpha damage that you have. 1.4 seconds reload is nothing to be scoffed at. Next, improved modules, because this tank, typical Chinese vehicle, has a somewhat weak ammo rack, and this will improve the ammo rack protection. Next, of course, coated optics, just because this tank has very bad view range, but also it doesn't need the camo rating at all. It is a frontline heavy tank after all. Next, the engine accelerator. Despite this tank having quite bad traverse speed, having 1 extra degree per second isn't worth it. If you notice the difference here, 29 degrees per second on hard terrain, compared to 29.99 degrees per second on hard terrain. You do lose engine power for not using engine accelerator just to gain a single degree of traverse speed, which in my opinion is not worth it. Next, use improved assembly, just because this tank, despite its decent armor, its good turret, the turret roof is overmatchable, and using enhanced armor doesn't save it, just because there's very few guns between the 90mm and the 95mm caliber, so there's no point using enhanced armor really. It doesn't make enough of a difference. The extra 105 hit points from the base 1750 up to 1855 is very nice to have. Next, gun lane drive, just because this tank really needs help with its aim time. You could use supercharger for the better shell velocity, however for me personally I believe that it is not worth it for this vehicle, just because you're in fairly close range, and unlike a Caliban, you do the most damage on your AP shell, not your HESH, and your AP shell already has much better shell velocity than Caliban's HESH. Next, vertical stabilizer, just because this tank has abysmal gun stabilization, and the dispersion, in all fairness, is better than the Caliban, though you could reduce it down to 0.391. For me personally, I like the better aim time. And then of course, the usual consumable delivery system and improved, well, toolbox. So one thing quickly, this tank does have a legendary camo, which you can see here. It is on theme for all the BZ tanks. You'll see that every single BZ on the Lesta server has a camo which is similar to this, and I can show that with the BZ-175 here. So yeah, that is the BZ-176's legendary camo. Let's get into the battles. The first one is this one on Castilla. So you'll see a few interesting tanks in this battle, the KV-4T for example, and of course an enemy BZ-176. However, notice what I'm going to do in this battle. Notice the rocket boosters. They do quite a significant thing for this tank. Actually, I haven't talked about the rockets boosters. I should probably do that. So, rocket boosters. These are a very important mechanic for the BZ-176 and the entire BZ tech tree, all the way from tier 7 to tier 10. So what these do are they increase your engine power massively by between 50 to 100%. It's not specified in game, but that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like it does the 200% that it does on 250% that it does on World of Tanks PC. It feels less than that. So it is a very significant increase to your engine power, and you do feel it in battle, which you'll see soon. The top speed increases from 35 to 65 kilometers per hour, which is very high, and it is very useful for situations where you have to get into a position at the beginning of the battle, where you have to reposition in the middle of a battle. For example, if you've won the flank and you need to now push to the other flank, or you need to make push to get around the enemies, then it is very good for that. And then the other situation is escaping enemies, because Rockets, of course, allowing you to go 65. If you're facing enemy heavy tanks, they have no chance to chase after you. So that is the rocket mechanic booster. The one downside of them is that you can't turn very easily when these are activated, and your reverse speed is reduced to 1 km per hour, which means you may as well not even attempt reversing. One other thing, it does say you do more damage when ramming, however, I haven't noticed that too much. It feels like it does normal ramming damage, maybe very, very slightly increased. But yeah, that is the rocket mechanic. You'll see me using it right now, and notice the sort of impact it has on this battle. So I'm going to try go to the usual place on Castilla, which is getting across into that dip. You'll see I make an on-move shot, which of course when I'm going 65 km per hour with as bad gun handling as a Caliban, it's not going to go very well. That was purely a luck shot. However, it doesn't matter because I'm almost reloaded and I am now in a great position for dealing with enemies. I can deal with the ones which are sniping behind base C. I can deal with enemies pushing up towards base B, such as this Chisa, and I can of course deal with the enemies who are on the hill. I do have to be a bit careful though, because I am now in a crossfire if I do expose myself. So, of course, with a Chisa in front of me and a BZ-176 behind me, I'm a bit nervous to be pushed, because if I do get pushed, unfortunately, I'm sort of alone unless this IS-6 supports me. And I can see that that BZ-176 is looking at me, so I'm not yet making a move. However, seeing the 176 out in the open, it's just too tempting. And 611 damage, absolutely no issue for this gun, which does 680. So here the Chisa is taking up a position above me, and considering he might have 9 degrees of gun depression, I do have to be a bit careful because he can overmatch my turret roof. However, I do push up, take a shot in the rear from the BZ-176, but notice what I did there. One shot, 737 damage. What other tier 8 tank can do this? Set up a shot with 6 degrees of gun depression and a turret to be able to, well, put in the shot and then do 700 damage. And then there you could see what I used the rockets for. Had I pushed up normally, the Chisa would have just turned his hull so that I couldn't shoot his side, and make it a harder shot for me into his lead plate. However, with the rockets I was able to get right around him almost instantly and get his side armor and shut him down. And then the Kanonen Jagdpanzer not standing a chance there with my high alpha damage, yet again doing another 600. Unfortunately, this enemy BZ gets a bit stuck and I am able to kill him as well. So now I'm up to 2,800 damage. Purpose of this battle wasn't too much about the damage, but rather showing you how the rockets worked. Showing that I could easily take that position on this side of the map using the rockets, crossing a very dangerous and long stretch of open ground, and then managing to take this strong position. Also managing to use the rockets to flank this Chisa, just because my standard mobility wouldn't have quite been enough. So here there is a 122 TM, trying to get in a shot before he manages to, well, retreat as he did. Unfortunately, of course, with poor aim time, poor gun handling and poor dispersion, I don't get the shot. So here you'll see I'm just capturing base B because I am down to now a one shot. I'm just going to let my allies go and push, especially on that KV-4T, which, if you didn't know, is completely broken overpowered because it has insane armor with a pretty good gun and not bad mobility. But maybe I'll talk about the KV-4T another time. There you can see something pretty nice about such a big gun, 160mm. I do manage to I do manage to hit a nice HE shell for 300 damage on the roof of the Tiger II, which of course all these big caliber guns are quite good at doing. Now I'm going to try to get around the Tiger II, hopefully flank him and get up that hill, or try and kill this 122 TM. And the 122 TM very luckily pushes up, and I just have enough time to aim my shot in and do 714 damage. Unfortunately it does mean my slow reverse speed gets me killed because I'm not able to pull into cover. However, we do manage to win this battle with my allies killing the Tiger II. So that game, 3,900 damage, I blocked 680 in total. It was an ace, so I make a bit of an extra amount of credits, 208 in total. I am using a credit booster, and this is also with the Christmas event additional credit and XP boost from the Christmas tree. But moving on to the next battle, it is on Molenbeek. So, this battle is not so much about the rocket use, it's more about the gun, because I really don't use the rockets all that much in this battle, but I do use, well, I put the gun to good use. Here you'll see one of the good things is that, of course, you can boost up positions very easily, get up that hill very quickly, and you can see now I'm ahead of all my team. And that's with fairly mediocre mobility on this tank. As I said in the stat review, this tank's mobility isn't that great. It's very sluggish because of its traverse speed, even though it does have a pretty decent top speed of 35. So Su-130 PM is spotted, I'm going to wait and aim in, and I hit him for 750 damage. That wasn't HE, that was just AP. And you'll notice a trend in this battle with the amount of damage I managed to do on my standard AP shells. So unfortunately this KV-4T is pushing me, and I'm calling for help immediately because a tank like this isn't going to do well against a KV-4 Turchaninov, which is that tank in front of me. And you'll see I had to load premium AP there and only did 480 damage, which is a big decrease, 200 damage decrease from my AP shell. So you can see why I called for help, just because my DPM is suddenly made completely terrible when I have to use premium AP. Oh look, another shot for 760 damage on that IS. Yeah, you can see where this battle is going. 2 shots with standard ammo, one doing 750, one doing 760. What other tank can do this? So there I get a bit greedy, really. I should have used the premium AP. Unfortunately, it does mean I miss out on the damage on the KV-4T. Now I'm just waiting for my reload before I push around, just in case the Su-130 PM is there to shoot me. But seeing that I'm not being shot, I'm going to push and get this KV-4T killed. Unfortunately, I do take a shot from the Su-130, but oh well, I still have a lot of hit points to be able to deal with, so it is fine. I decide not to go for the SU just because I have other tanks who are behind me, and I go for the Object 252U instead. Watch this. Slowly aiming, another shot, 740 damage. So in this battle, the damage I've done with standard ammo, 750, 760, 740. Yeah, a bit insane. Of course, it is lucky, however, sometimes it does happen in this tank. Again, I rammed that BZ for a little bit, but then I did 670 damage roughly. Something very nice for this tank. So here I am pushing the BZ just to make him a bit intimidated and for him to retreat, and it manages to work because that guy would have out-reloaded me, I believe, because he had adrenaline active and I didn't. So here I'm just waiting for him to make a move, hopefully make a mistake, and I'm not going to push him because I am down to a one-shot. So he does push, luckily for me, and with base B being captured I know exactly where the ISU is, and he is spotted. So with me down to 400 hit points, I decide I'm going to rush this guy and I'll take a shot on the move, just because if he shoots me I'm probably dead. He manages to bounce somehow, and I hit his tracks, so I don't get the penetrating shot. If I'd known he would bounce, I would have saved my shot till now, but unfortunately, I didn't know. So the ISU does manage to shut me down after my ram there, but it is a win. Again, that battle, not so much about the use of the rockets, but more about the gun. And sort of the crazy things that it sometimes pulls off. In that game using standard AP, I didn't roll under 740 once. Every shot did more than 740 damage, which was a bit crazy. Of course I did use some premium ammo, which does much less damage, of course. That also was a first class, so I did make 190,000 credits, which is pretty nice with a credit booster. So, final battle, also on Molenbeek. From the other spawn this time. So, in this battle, I am looking at the team lineup at this moment. I see that enemies have a Tiger 2 and a KV-4T, and I decide, I don't want to face a KV-4T and a Tiger 2. Two tanks which I have no chance of penetrating with standard ammo from the front, and for the KV-4T even from the side. Well, if he's angled. So I decide I'm going to go towards base A, but then seeing that my IS-3 and Borsig are pushing up towards C, I decide I'll go support them. So this battle will be about both the use of rockets and the gun, and it is quite interesting. So here I go using the rockets to boost along and get up this hill. Notice how fast I'm going, 55 up the hill, and I'm into position basically immediately. I do spot the Tiger 2, so I prepare a shot, and unfortunately, of course, the bad dispersion causes me to hit his turret roof. Also, in these battles, I am using a vertical stabilizer, so that is worth noting. So, with two tanks, paper tanks, spotted, I decide I'm going to go use HE, and getting in an exact average roll into the AMX AC there for 780 damage. But with the KV-4T pushing up behind me, I decide it's time to run, and this is something I very much value the rockets for with this tank, able to just very quickly get away from the KV-4T and not take any damage in exchange. And look at that, immediately in position to shoot the Scorpion, if my accuracy wasn't abysmal, of course. Taking a few seconds to aim in, but I did manage to kill him with another HE shell. So you can see there, I was pushed by the KV-4T. Without the rockets, I wouldn't have been able to run from him, but because I had rockets, I was very easily able to escape that situation and not just take a full magazine of 960 damage from him. Now here with the long reload, I'm just waiting and expecting the KV to push, so he does, and I managed to put in a premium AP shell. I'm not going to risk the standard ammo bounce, even though there was a small bar of penetrable area on the front. It's just not worth it because I only have two 10mm of penetration and his whole front is 200mm at the weakest, and it does seem like he is using advanced armor. So 204 at the weakest. Sorry, 208, 204. Again, rockets, I managed to get right past that opening where the KV-4T was. He was on a reload, but you can see the point I'm trying to make. If there were tanks there ready to shoot, using the rockets would have allowed me to get past them quickly, a lot more quickly than other tanks, and, well, get into safety of being away from them. Unfortunately, the Jagdpanther 2 dies in a terrible position, which stops me from actually getting up the hill, and then I just have abysmal luck with that shot, and it goes nowhere close to the Canonian Jagdpanther. But CGC rams him to death, and he is gone. But yeah, that battle, you could see the rocket use and the gun use really very nice for being able to boost into position up that hill and then get away from the KV-4T twice. Just a very useful mechanic to have on this tank. That game making more normal amount of credits, 124,000 with a second class mastery badge. But yeah, BZ-176, tier 8 tank, 680 alpha with rockets. Yeah, seems quite strong, right? I will say this tank is very good, it is influential, but I won't say it's the strongest vehicle. There are very big downsides to this tank, of course, abysmal aim time, poor dispersion, horrible gun handling are many of those factors, but also, while its armor is good, it does have significant weak points which knowledgeable enemies can very easily deal with. The turret roof being penetrable to basically most tanks you face, and of course the weak point of the lower plate, which is very large. Other than this as well, it can't side scrape or angle because the side armor is only 50. So despite having some very influential features such as massive damage, pretty good penetration, pretty good DPM, and very high speed with rockets, it does have a fair share of downsides. That's not to say this tank is, well, it's not to say this tank is bad, but this tank is relatively well balanced, I'd say. It's a bit toxic because of the alpha damage, but it does have enough downsides that it doesn't feel ultra strong or overpowered or anything like that. It feels like a strong vehicle, but still relatively balanced. And I think Lesta has done a great job with the jet booster mechanic. It is quite well balanced with the fact that it has a 35-second cooldown for a 10-second duration, which means that while 35 seconds is faster than most consumables, this isn't ultra flexible. You can't reverse, you can't turn, you can only go forward, and it's not like the ram damage is insane from this mechanic. So it's a good mechanic, makes the vehicles very interesting, and for a tank with as insane alpha damage as the BZ-176, I think Lesta has done a pretty decent job with balancing both the mechanic and the vehicle. But yeah, that is the BZ-176 for Lesta. Thanks for watching.